Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caroline, and today's video, voice crack. Today's video is the monthly reading wrap up. So basically I'll be talking about all the books that I read in March. I didn't read that many books in March, but honestly it could have been worse. Like, it was a pretty medium month. I am behind on my Goodreads goal, but I always have to take into account, like, I read a lot during the summer. Like, I read more in the summer than I read in the school year, obviously, because I'm less busy. So I'm not freaking out yet. I think there's lots of time to catch up and to read enough books. But without further ado, let's get into the books that I read in March. I read 4 books in total in March. And yeah, I'd say it was a medium reading month. I enjoyed the books that I read this month, so I think that's good. Like, overall, pretty high ratings, pretty good ratings. Okay, so I started off by reading All the Young Dudes, Volume 2. So this one kind of takes some explaining. Basically, All the Young Dudes is a AO3 fan fiction, and it's about the Marauders, who are characters in Harry Potter. All the Young Dudes is a really good fan fiction. I definitely recommend. I love, like, the Marauders aesthetic. I love those fan fictions. And so basically on Goodreads, I don't know who did this. I don't know if it was the writer. They broke it up into 3 volumes. So there's the first volume, and then the second volume is like years 4 through 7, which is basically like the main characters when they're at Hogwarts, and they're between like years 4 and 7. So it took me genuinely over a year to read this, just because I've kind of been reading it on the side, and I also listened to it because there's this really awesome girl who posts her reading it on Spotify. I'll pop up a picture of what it looks like on Spotify. It's for free. I definitely recommend. I love her voice. I love her storytelling. So I've just been reading it like very slowly. I started it in January of 2023 and finished it in March of 2024. So it took me a while, but overall I really enjoyed it. I rated it a 4 stars. I love All the Young Dudes and just like Marauders in general, just because they feel like my family, which I know sounds cheesy, but like it's like they're my comfort characters, like Sirius and Remus, and James and Lily. Like, they're all my comfort characters, and so I love it so much. I don't know if I'll continue with this series, just because now they're out of school, and the next volume 3, is kind of about the war, which is really dark, and I really enjoy like the Hogwarts atmosphere, just because it's very like academic, aesthetic, magical, light academia. So I might have to move on to a different Marauders fanfic, but I definitely want to continue reading them because I really love the world, love the characters. So yeah, I rated it a 4 stars. Definitely, if you're interested in Harry Potter or the Marauders or the ships in the Marauders, I'd recommend All the Young Dudes. Okay, next I read If Only I Had Told Her, which is the second book in a duology. The first one is If He Had Been With Me, and then the second is If Only I Had Told Her. And I'm gonna try to talk about this book without spoiling the first. But basically in the first, the entire book is leading up to this car incident where the main character, Finn, where he dies. And so from the beginning of that book, If He Had Been With Me, that he's gonna die. But you're getting Autumn's perspective of like the years leading up to his death, and they're childhood best friends, and there's like some romantic feelings. Like, Autumn has always kind of loved him, and so then in this book you get his perspective, which I was so excited to read, because you really don't get like you never get to be in the brain of Finn in the first book. And so the entire time I was reading, I just had so many questions. I was like, well, how does he feel about this? Oh, like, why did he do that? And so I was just so curious about him the entire time I was reading the first one. So I was really excited to read this one. But to be honest, it was a little bit of a letdown, just because it felt like a lot of repeating. Like, I feel like he repeated a lot. You also get 2 other perspectives, by the way, so you get 3, but majority of it is Finn's perspective. And it just felt like there could have been more secrets unveiled, or like there could have been more things in this book that weren't in the first. But it very much coincides with the first book, and like in the sense that there were even moments where I feel like it was like the exact same paragraph, just like slightly altered with like different pronouns, you know, just because they tell a lot of the same stories. So I was just a little disappointed that there was less new content in this book, because I thought there would be more. So I rated it a 2.75. I enjoyed getting his perspective, and it did give me like some closure overall, because like when I finished the first book, I remember I was crying, I was distressed, I was like, what did I just read? And so this definitely gave me closure in the same way that like it starts with us kind of gives you closure for it ends with us. So if you're needing some closure after reading the first, I would recommend it. But if you're happy after reading the first, then I think you don't need to read this one. Okay, next I read Love Theoretically, and I read this on my phone. This is by Ali Hazelwood. It follows Elsie, and she is currently a adjunct professor, and she is not doing too hot. She is not thriving financially. She has student debt, I believe. She's living in this really crappy apartment, and she's working as an adjunct, and she's not incredibly happy about that. Which I don't know if I'm saying adjunct right, hopefully. Maybe I'm not, and maybe I sound like a fool. But what she's doing to pay the rent is she is a fake girlfriend. So she basically goes on dates with guys, and they pay her to be their fake girlfriend. So that's her job. And one of her clients, she's gone on like multiple fake dates with him, and the romance is between her and her client's older brother named Jack. And that's really all I'm going to say. It is, if you've read Ali Hazelwood, you know she very much focuses on like the science world, and she does focus on the science world in this one too. And so there were times when like she would get really nitty-gritty into all of like the science stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm reading this for fun, not to study. So there were some times when I was bored, but overall I really liked this. I liked the plot line. I thought it was cute. I thought Elsie was relatable. She has a lot of character development, and I feel like she struggles with being a people pleaser and a pushover, which I think is relatable to a lot of people. And so she was definitely relatable, and I really liked her like character growth, especially with Jack. Like once like they kind of became friends, like they really helped each other grow. And yeah, I overall enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I liked the love hypothesis, but I thought like the concept was really cute, and I really liked Jack. He was a really well written guy. And I rated this a 3.75, so pretty good. Alright, the last book that I read in March was The Lost Bookshop. This is what it looks like. I read this because my mom really liked it. In fact, I think she rated it a 5 stars. And I was like, okay, I should probably read it. This is, I would call it historical fiction, although it has flipping timelines. So it goes back between characters in the 1920s, and then it goes back to like modern times, and it goes to like characters in like 2022. But I would still consider it historical fiction, because even the characters like nowadays are still focusing on things that happened in the past, if that makes sense. But basically there is this lost bookshop that this man named Henry is trying to find, and it is somehow connected to the woman from the 1920s whose perspective you're getting, named Opaline. So basically there's 3 perspectives. You're getting Opaline's from the 1920s, who's this young woman who is really interested in reading. And then there's 2 perspectives from like the 2020s, which is Martha, who's this woman who recently had a very abrupt life change and moved to Ireland, moved to Dublin, I believe. And then Henry, who is on the hunt for this lost bookshop, who is also currently residing in Dublin. So there's like kind of two different plots going on, which I thought was really cool, because as soon as you got tired of one plot, you'd like go to the other plot, which I thought was cool. And overall, I really liked this book. It was very whimsical and magical and like English lit vibes. Very like, if you like books and you like the setting of like bookshops and stuff, you'll definitely like that. And so I really liked like the whimsical aesthetic that was going on. But at times, I will say it did get a little bit slow. I found myself a little bored at times, or like, oh, like they're having the same conversation that they've had like a million times. And then also at the very end, basically, I won't spoil, but there is a bit of romance in this book, because there's romance plots in the like old like the 1920s timeline, and then there's also romance plots in like the modern timeline. There was a romance at the very end that felt like very abrupt to me, and I feel like the author just should have given that romance like a bit more time, a bit more detail, just like written more about it, because it just felt like very all of a sudden to me. So that was one thing that kind of bothered me, because I was reading it and I was like, that just does not make sense. So that was something that wasn't my favorite. But overall, I rated it a 3.75. I enjoyed it. I liked like the whimsical feel, and I still think about this book, and like how it made me feel, and I liked it. And it also talks a lot about like old famous English authors, specifically like women authors like Emily Bronte. So if you're really into that, or if you're an English lit major or something, I think you'd like this book. Those are all the books that I read in March, and I am excited for April. I think April will be pretty good. And then I'm really excited for the summer months, because maybe not May, since that's like when everything happens, but definitely like June, July, August, I will be reading a lot, and I'm very excited. I'll see y'all later.